Okay, so I want to go back to the topic of Warner Bros. Games and splitting up, right? The band's breaking up, and what happens to it, right? We had that video go up, I believe, yesterday, where we talked about the merging, the acquisition, whatever you want to call it. And I obviously got a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, not just yesterday, but obviously Monday when it happened. And I don't want people to think I'm milking this or anything like that. I never go into any of these topics assuming I'm milking anything, and maybe that's hard to believe for some people. I guess they can get lost because that's just not literally how I do things. But I wanted to have this discussion for Gotham Knights because this was something I kind of was joking about to Christy, my wife, when we were eating dinner a few days ago. I was like, well, if I were Discovery and like Warner Bros. Montreal came to me in this deal, like, I'd be pretty mean to them. Like, I'd be very, very upfront in what I think they've accomplished. So I wanted to bring that into a video and talk specifically about Gotham Knights. So, in the video yesterday, we talked about, Hogwarts Legacy. Would that be at risk? Would Suicide Squad? Would Lego Star Wars? Or, I guess, even the futures of these studios. Would Rocksteady be okay? Would Avalanche be okay? Would TT Games, which is the ones that make the Lego games, would they be okay? So I want to talk about I'm not going to do it for all of them. I wanted to do a Gotham Knights video today anyway, and I was like, okay, this obviously makes sense, so we're going to do that. Hopefully you guys like this. I feel like I'm talking a little bit more direct and just feeling a little bit more confident than I normally do. Don't really know why or how. I just kind of woke up this way. So hopefully you guys are not put off by that at all. But make sure, if you guys do like this stuff, that you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, all that good stuff. If you want to follow me over on Twitter, Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. I'm always kind of more direct and upfront over on Twitter anyway. So again, link for that is in the description below. Okay, I mean, to be very fair, to be very honest, to be very truthful, I don't want any of these studios being closed. I don't want any of these games being canceled. I don't want any future games being canceled. To recap the video yesterday quickly and as simply as possible, I am not worried for Gotham Knights. I'm not worried for any game. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Any game that's announced, or even games that have been in the works a long time. NetherRealm's next game, Monolith's next game. Those are the two biggest examples I can personally. I don't even know what other ones you could think of. Those are the two biggest ones. If Monolith has been working on a Middle-earth game for 4 years or 3 years, I don't even know why it's been that long without them saying anything, I think it would be okay. I think the studios, for right now, are completely fine. Now, in the future, do I think they're fine? No, I think there's a lot more uncertainty. I think it's very possible the studios AT&T keeps, they do a hard look at, and they say, okay, we really need to look at how you do things. Maybe we close some down. Maybe we have a more direct hand in what you make next. And then the studios that go over to Discovery, they're obvious, no matter what, they will definitely have a hard look at them because you're obtaining, you're getting a brand new thing. You see it with the HBO Max side of things, right? A lot of the leadership of HBO Max, they're gone. They're or they want out. Like, they're going to get out. And that oftentimes, you even look at sports teams, right? If there's new ownership, if there's a new general manager, most times the coaches don't make it past that because the GM wants to bring in his or her own people, right? Because it just is better that way. I mean, you don't want to have people with a big disconnect. So, maybe that's getting too far off the topic. I personally don't think so. But so specifically with Gotham Knights, I think Gotham Knights is fine. I don't think the game is going to have any problems. I think the game is going to release, so I don't think it's going to get canceled. I don't think anything really changes on that front. In fact, it's very possible Gotham Knights comes out before this acquisition or this merge, whatever you want to call it, goes through. Remember, it doesn't actually go through until around this time next year. Very possible Gotham Knights comes out before then. It could come out in January, February, March, all these months before the stuff even goes through. Now, I mentioned this in the video yesterday. What I flat out don't know of, and I don't think anybody really knows, to be honest with you, I don't know what happens after that. So Gotham Knights comes out in January or February, let's just say. And I don't actually think it will. It'll probably be more like a March, April, and that's just opinion. But say it comes out in January or February. What do they do? What does Warner Bros. Montreal actually do afterwards? Because if they're being basically shifted over to Discovery, they're under completely new ownership, all this stuff, and they, what do they do for those 3 months before it happens? Do they have orders from somebody to do something? If they're staying at AT&T, under the umbrella, I should say, of AT&T, I think it's a lot more easy because I think they just kind of keep going like normal. But here's the thing. I'm not mean to be mean. In fact, I honestly don't think I'm mean just in general, that often, if at all, on YouTube. I'm critical. I would call myself critical of things. And I've been very critical on Warner Bros. Montreal in the past, while routinely, and I will say it again here, just as I've always said, routinely understanding and even praising the people that work there. I understand game development is hard. I have great respect for a lot of the people that work at Warner Bros. Montreal and that probably have worked there for years and years and years. Not the same people, but different people that have probably left, okay? At the same time, you have to be a realist and you have to look at things, especially if we're trying to predict what could happen to them. Let's do both. If you're AT&T, you're still in possession of this studio. So say you keep them. And we don't know which studios are going or staying. And I'd love to know that. I'd love to know that soon, and maybe we will. But say you're AT&T and you keep them. I don't think that immediately makes them safe, by the way, because yes, there's a reason probably why you kept them, so maybe they're more safe, but I do also think you look at them and say, okay, like, you were spared because we wanted you for a specific reason, and maybe that reason is not exactly what Warner Bros. Montreal wants. Now, businesses are oftentimes painted and portrayed as evil, and a lot of them are. It could very well be one of those situations where they say, we kept you because we see something in you. You're very valuable to us in a DC kind of lens. However, you've done next to nothing in the past quite a while. And again, that's the whole, you could call it harsh, you could call it being too mean, but that goes to, if they were to go to Discovery, that's the biggest thing there. So to move over there really quickly, if you're Discovery, you bought them. So it's almost the same thing because, AT&T, if you keep them, thinking about it optimistically, you would say, okay, well, there's got to be a reason you kept them, a reason why you didn't sell them off as part of the deal. You know what I mean? And so that's a positive. If you're Discovery, the optimistic point of view would be, well, you purposely bought them. Or you maybe wanted all of the game studios, but they only gave you some, and you said, okay, maybe you negotiated them, and you specifically picked Warner Bros. Montreal, okay? Now, I don't know how it works. I don't know. I don't know what the actual situation was, but I do assume that they aren't just like a throw-in deal that nobody thinks of. I do think somebody thought of these studios or had it in mind. I do think there's a plan in place for these studios, whether that's let them continue to do their thing, whether that's we're going to immediately close them, whether it's we're going to shift them into doing something. And again, like the closure one seems the most odd because you bought them and they're coming in, but to completely shift them does not seem so far-fetched. You know what I mean? You could buy them and say, well, we like the prospect of these developers and we like what they've done before, but we have no intention to keep them doing the same stuff. We have totally different plans, and that could very well happen. And oftentimes when that happens, it results in massive people leaving the company, either being fired or just leaving, right? So if you acquire Rocksteady, if you acquire Warner Bros. Montreal, and you change them into something that they're just not, you are going to lose more than half the staff. It's just going to happen. You know what I mean? And that's a negative, bad thing. I don't want people losing jobs, okay? So yeah, I am being kind of critical. I'm kind of poking fun of them because if you're Discovery, you look at them and say, one game in 10 years, huh? Gotham Knights. You did Arkham Origins, and then you did pretty much nothing. Now, but the funny situation is they were doing stuff, multiple stuffs, and they just couldn't get it all together. But still, that's if you want to look at it as a pessimistic, at like a negative thing, I mean, from the outside looking in, even from me, and I've called them out, and I don't really think, again, I'm being too hard. If you think making one game, Gotham Knights, now I want to work with Warner Bros. Montreal. I hope to get a game code of Gotham Knights before the game comes out. Like I won't lie to you. I want that. I hope for that. Okay. If it doesn't happen, am I going to cry about it? No, it's not the end of the world. But I want that. So I'm not saying anything to purposely try to ruin my odds with ever talking to them or being invited somewhere or anything like that. But I mean, it's not unfair to say that there's a problem with your studio if you've made one game in a decade and that game didn't take the full decade to make. And even if it did take the full decade to make, that's still a problem. You know, because games shouldn't take 10 years to make. They just shouldn't. Maybe they should in terms of quality, but that's just not how the industry works, right? So I mean, to poke at them in a funny yet very critical way, I would say, as I've said, I'm not worried for Gotham Knights. I'm not worried for Warner Bros. Montreal right now. But if you're looking at these studios, Warner Bros. Montreal, I would argue to say they're one of the weaker ones is, again, that's very critical. That you could call that very, very harsh or very mean. But I don't know. You look at Rocksteady, they did the Arkham franchise, and they did very, very well, although there were problems with Knight. And yeah, it's actually taking them an incredibly long time to make Suicide Squad. You could look at that as a major negative. Avalanche has made all sorts of different stuff. I think Avalanche is actually a very versatile studio that could survive. The developer who makes all the Lego games, they are very valuable, very, very valuable. They don't make games like every year, but they're very, I'd say they're very like punctual. They make quite a few games, and I think their value is quite high. Monolith, kind of all over the place, right? NetherRealm, very profitable, very big, able to do at least 2 different things, right, with Injustice and Mortal Kombat. So basically, what I'm saying is, you look at, I know there's more. There's I think 11 in all, and I can really only think of like 6 or 7. I think there's some that are more like helping studios. I think there's some that I just flat out forget about, that I just don't, I'm too lazy maybe to do the research of. But if you look at just the ones I listed, Warner Bros. Montreal, I feel like, is easily the weakest one. By a long mile. I don't care how good Gotham Knights is. I think by a long mile, Warner Bros. Montreal is the least valuable and just probably the weakest in general. And that's not to say anything about the people working there. It's not. These things could have happened. They could have had the plug pulled on them with a past game that could have actually been good, right? If they were doing a Suicide Squad game, or they were doing a Wonder Woman game, or the Damian Wayne game could have been out 2 years ago, and it could have been better than all of the Arkham games, right? We would never know. But maybe that could have happened, and it was actually people above them that did it. So I'm not, again, don't take it as directly going after them. Hopefully everybody's smarter than that. Hopefully they're smarter than, if they listen. I doubt they listen, but hopefully they're smarter than to think that I, just go after them to go after them. It is something that I would be concerned about. I know the very long-winded way of getting there, but I would say, would Warner Bros. Montreal be okay during this merging? I'm not sold on that. I'm sold on them being okay right now, but if you ask me in a year from now, like, how do you feel? I would say, oh, probably not good. Because, again, if they stay, sure, there's a reason they stayed, but I still think you take a hard look at them. I still think AT&T looks at them and says, what do you actually do? What do you actually provide to us as a company, okay? And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying that should be the questions they're asked. And then if they are merged, or they're, shifted over to Discovery, you're asked, okay, why are you here? Like, what can you do for me, right? And I don't think there's very good answers when they get asked those. Because they only have one game to their credit in Arkham Origins, which is not the most well-received. And you could say it's your favorite Arkham game all you want, but it wasn't the highest selling. It was easily the least received, I guess, maybe with Arkham Knight in terms of, like, critical reception. So, I mean, just the facts are that, is that. And then they spent almost 10 years doing all sorts of things that they couldn't get off the ground, which doesn't look good. And then they do Gotham Knights, and we don't even know how Gotham Knights is going to be. If Gotham Knights is great, sure, that probably looks good, and maybe a lot of this stuff goes away. A lot of the stuff I said sounds stupid, sounds outdated, and they're fine. If Gotham Knights sucks, they're in, I think, a load of trouble. Which we'll talk many, many more times about as the months and years go on. So, again, I thought this would be fun. I thought whatever my new kind of cocky-ish, like, direct attitude that I seemingly have today would probably do well with a video like this, so I wanted to bring you this video. Let me know, guys, in the comments what you think about it. Do you think they're in trouble, in a few years from now, in a year from now? Do you think they're fine? Let me know. Again, make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, hit the like button, all that good stuff. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, Podcast Now 15, links in the description below. Thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully it's at E3. Hopefully we can talk a lot more about this game very, very soon, and I hope to talk to you guys then.